Hi everyone, this is Nick Souza from the Digital Arts Experience, and today I'm going to show you how to set up OBS Studio. If you are in our YouTube club or if you're in a YouTube class, there's a good chance that you're going to be using this software for making videos. There's a lot of cool applications. I'm going to show you how to get set up for a really simple setup, but again, you can take that information and run with it for whatever you need to do with it. I'm going to try and cover as much as possible, but there may be some specific things that need to be addressed on your system. There could be some settings and whatnot. So if you have any questions, talk to your instructor, talk to the club coordinator, who that would be Evan if you've met him, or you can try and let me know, Nick, at thedae.com. Our contact information should be somewhere on the club page, so let us know if you have any problems. We'll do our best to help you. Also on that note, please double check the club website. We will be updating it with more videos and details. So if you can't find what you're looking for right away, take a look on the club page. But if you see, or rather, if you don't see something that you would like us to dive into a little bit more, let us know. We can always make a video and update the club page with more information. All right, so with all that scramble out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into it. So with OBS already launched here, the first thing you need to know is how it basically works. We've got scenes, sources, audio mixers, and a bunch of control settings. Basically, the scenes are kind of like a scene in a play, where each scene is going to have different stuff in there. You might have different set dressing, different actors, so on and so forth. Every scene is going to have something a little bit different, and it allows you to switch between those scenes. In those scenes, you're going to have sources. So like in a play, if you've got a character, a set piece, or a prop, whatever that is, this is where it would be listed. In the case of OBS, these are things such as like your webcam, your microphone, things like that. This is where they go. Audio mixer just allows you to control the sound a little bit more. There are some scene transitions. We're not going to mess around with that. And then these are the controls, which basically allow you to record, go into studio mode, other things like that, so on and so forth. I'm not going to go through everything on here. We're just going to get the bare minimum. So, for us to start, we need to set up a scene. Now, I have a scene in here already, but you probably don't. So let me show you how to go ahead and add one. There's a little plus symbol right down over here. We're going to call this YouTube Desktop. And basically, this is going to get my desktop video. We're going to add a webcam, and then we're going to get the audio for the desktop and our microphone, which, to make this a little bit easier, I'm actually going to hide these so it's not as confusing, so it actually should match yours now. So we've got YouTube Desktop here, and I'm actually going to delete this other scene by hitting the minus key. So we've got YouTube Desktop, which is great. We have our first scene. This is what we want to do, but we need to add some things to it. Specifically, we need to add some sources. So we're going to hit the plus symbol here, and let's add in the display first. So we're going to call this primary display. You can name it what you like. But again, and I'm going to warn you to make sure you name these meaningfully. Don't call this Bob, for example. I know it's funny, but then when you go back to adjust things, you may not remember what Bob stands for. So do so at your own peril. If you set up your stuff really in a wonky way, we may not be able to help you as efficiently. So do so at your own peril. I'm going to say OK here. So now we've got our primary display, and this is showing my main screen, which is cool. It's replicating it because OBS is capturing my screen, which has OBS, which has my screen, which has OBS. So it's just going down the line here. You can see that I've got multiple displays here. If you don't, that's totally fine. You can just capture the primary display. So it should go here by default. You're not required to have multiple screens. It is very handy. So if you start doing this, on a more regular basis, you can always upgrade. That's totally fine, but we will work with what you have right now. I also like to leave capture cursor on. If I have this turned off, you can see it's actually not showing up anywhere in the recording. I do find it's a little bit easier to guide the eye if this is on, so I'll say OK. Now, this should show up right away in the window, but if it doesn't, it could be one of two things. Let me actually just do this. And it is technically in the screen, but it's just not showing up. For whatever reason, sometimes when you add a display, it may go off screen here. I don't know if that's a bug or if there's something to do with the specific settings, but to check if it's actually there, click on primary display. You should see some red dots, or it may look like one red dot. That could just mean it's scaled down very, very small. So what we're going to do here is, once primary display is selected, I'm going to right click, we're going to go to transform, and we're going to say fit to screen, and it should come back to full size. If you have the red outline and the red dots along the corners and on the very edges here. It could be that your system has a security setting that does not allow you to do screen recordings. I believe this is specific to Macintosh machines, so you may have to go into your control panel and look around for a setting. I want to say it's under security, but I could be wrong. You may need to do a little bit of a Google search to figure out where that is, but there is a checkbox that will not prohibit your machine's screen to be captured. So make sure that is off. You may have to close and relaunch OBS Studio to get it to open, but double check and make sure that's not hampering your ability. If you still can't get it to work, reach out and we'll see if we can troubleshoot. But with that said, I have my video up here now, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and lock it, so now I can't select it or anything. You can do some clever things, such as scaling this down. If I hold down, was it Shift? This will lock the aspect ratio, and I can move this around. So you could potentially have multiple displays up, but we're not going to do that for this video, but it is an option. So I'm going to say fit to screen again, and I'm going to lock it so I can't accidentally select it anymore. Now, what I'm going to do from here is we're going to add in a webcam. So I'm going to click on go to my sources again. I'm going to click on plus, and we're going to find video capture device. Before I add this, one, make sure that your USB camera is plugged in, and second, that it is not being used by another bit of software. So if you are currently in a meeting for Google Meet, or Zoom or whatever it is, depending on your system, it may not allow you to use your video capture. Like, you can add it, but it may not show up right away because the computer is using that input somewhere else. Some machines don't seem to have this problem, but if it's not showing up, I just wanted to mention that really quickly. So make sure that you are not using your webcam in another application. So we're going to click on video capture device. We will call this webcam. We'll say OK. And hello, there I am. Hi. For some reason, it's coming in in a weird aspect ratio, so I'm going to deactivate the feed for a second. We're going to set the resolution FPS type to custom. I'm going to set the resolution. My camera can go pretty high, apparently. Maybe yours can go higher, maybe it goes lower. What I would do for this is to set it to a resolution that makes sense. For the actual video over here, for most YouTubers, like, you're probably going to put the camera on the lower left side, and some of us may not be working on super high-end machines, so it probably doesn't make sense to have this be a super crazy high number. You can go for, say, 720 or maybe even 480. It depends on the size. If your quality is not coming out too good, you can boost that up, but I do recommend going a little bit on the lower side, at least for a start. You can always increase it. In this case, I'm going to go for 864 by 480, and apologies for the cars outside. I'll reactivate the video. So that is roughly the correct aspect ratio I wanted. I am going to set the FPS to 30. The rest of this I can leave as is. That seems to be fine, and I will say OK. And it will add in my camera over here, so now I can move this around wherever I want. I can put this in the upper left side. I can put this in the bottom right. Again, I can scale this down a little bit if it's still a little too large. Shift is supposed to... Oh, weird. Is it Control or Shift? Oh, that's weird. Oh, it already does the aspect ratio by default. That's because it's a specific feed, I guess. Okay, cool. So I'm going to say that's a decent size. Now, for my videos, when I record them, I do like to be in the lower left-hand side over here, but I am facing the wrong direction. So I'm going to right-click. I'm going to say Transform, Flip Vertical. No, not Vertical. There's no undo button. All right, so we're going to do that again. Transform, Flip Vertical, and then we will do Transform, Flip Horizontal. Okay, there we go. Now I'm facing the right direction. Now, there is a little bit of extra space over here, so I am going to show you filters really quickly. So if we have webcam selected, I will click on filters. There's audio and video filters. You can play around with those. I'm just going to show you one because it is very common to use this. I'm going to hit the plus symbol under effects, and I'm going to go to crop pad. I'm just going to call this crop. And what I can do here is I can actually crop the video because I have all this extra space right over here. Which I don't want to use. I'm going to set the left to, let's try 50. Let's try 100. You see it's actually scaling this up as I go as well. It's keeping it relative here. You can check this off, I believe. Ooh, it did not like that. So if I do that. All right, apparently we're going to keep that on. I'm not sure what they mean by relative then. But 150 seems to work. That keeps me very nice in frame there, so I'll leave that and we'll close. And now I can just move that over a little bit, so it's a little bit nicer in frame. I can also scooch over a little bit, so play around with your setup and see how well that works. Okay, cool. And you can always go back to filters over here. Google, I did not ask you to pop up. My phone is giving me a notification there. Let me just turn off a few things. Okay, great. Now, because I imported my webcam, you'll notice that we actually have a bit of sound over here. For whatever reason, I don't know why OBS does this, because even though I have a webcam that should be video only, it still gives me the audio. I'm actually going to mute this and hide it, because we're going to set up a separate input for the audio. So what I'm going to do here, now that my webcam is set, I'm going to lock it. This is pretty much going to be my YouTube recording space over here, which is pretty cool. What I'm going to do here, though, is I'm recording on a bit of different software. I'm sorry, let's try that sentence again. I'm recording on a bit of different software for the video. So you're probably hearing my voice right now, but it's not being entered in OBS yet. We need to set in the inputs for the audio. So let's get my voice first into audio, or in your case, your voice. So we're still working in the same scene over here. We're going to go back to sources. We're going to hit plus. We're going to go to audio input capture. So the input is what you are sending into the machine. So in this case, I'm using a microphone, which is this Blue Yeti over here. And we're going to input that into OBS. So we're going to say Yeti microphone. Okay. Now when you come over here, you can click on default, and it should read all the different type of inputs that you have. I could potentially use the webcam for my what is this thing called again? No, I could use the microphone from my webcam. There we go, got it out. But I could also use my Yeti. Now, I like using my Yeti a lot more because it's a much nicer microphone. If you don't have a dedicated microphone, that's totally fine. Go ahead and use your webcam. Again, work with what equipment you have right now and upgrade later once you start getting more serious about putting YouTube videos out, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to set mine to Yeti. You can set yours to microphone. We'll say OK. And there we go. We now have an input. We should, as I'm talking, you should see these bars go up and down. I am going to go ahead and lower this a little bit because maybe I'm talking a little bit louder. Sorry, I just bumped my own mic. You don't really want this to get into the red. If it peaks a little bit into the yellow, that's okay. Generally what this represents is that your audio is reaching a point where it can't go any higher and it's going to just sound horrible. So you may have to play around with this dial a little bit. But we now have our audio. What about the computer? If you are playing a video game on your desktop or computer game, whatever, however you want to call it, you will not hear any audio from the computer. Right now you're just getting my voice. So what we need to do is we need to add in an audio output capture. So if audio input is coming into the computer, the output is what's coming out from the computer. So like when you're playing a movie or watching someone else play games on YouTube or something, the output is coming from your speakers. So that's what we're going to capture. We're going to call this speaker, or actually we'll call this desktop output. You can call this speakers if that's easier. But I'm going to go over here, and there are my speakers right over here. These two, the top, or this one and the bottom one, are actually speakers on my monitors, which I don't ever use, and for some reason it is capturing my microphone, which is just no. So I'm going to set this to my speakers. And now I have desktop output. It's not playing anything right now because I don't have any output coming from the machine. But if I say we can go to YouTube for a quick second. So I'll just put this over here. Actually, I'm going to do this off screen in case it goes into our account, which it might. This is why I like having multiple screens. YouTube, I need you to load. There are things we need to do. Let's pick you know what? I'm gonna look at I'm just trying to find a halfway decent video because it's YouTube and sometimes they recommend the craziest stuff. This magnetic accelerometer or magnetic accelerator is a pretty cool one. Okay, so this is a guy that experiments with some magnets. He's basically making this Railgun, I think it's technically called, which is pretty cool. But you can see now we are getting some desktop output over here. And again, you can change how much this is coming in. I definitely recommend for whatever output you have. I'll stop this video here because we can see it's working. I don't need to play this anymore. I definitely recommend whatever settings you have, that check and make sure that your voice is good first, and then adjust the desktop output so that it is half as loud as your voice, or to a third. Basically, when the lines come up, because this is my general range for my voice, the desktop audio should be about half of that, so somewhere about over here, maybe to a third, because you want your audience to hear you. You don't want your desktop to be more powerful than your voice. You should still hear it a little bit in the background, but definitely experiment a little bit. You're going to have to do a couple recording tests to get this right. But that way, you don't have to do it during editing, which is a big more of a pain in the tuchus. All right, so we actually have all the settings we need for a basic recording in OBS. But now, how do we actually record? Well, there's a button right over here that says record, which is quite nice. But before you do that, we have to check the settings. We're going to go over to settings right over here. Now, for the most part, you don't have to worry about all this crazy stuff. The main thing we're going to pay attention to is the output. You don't have to pay attention to streaming, so ignore that. Go down to recording. The most important one is the recording path. This is where your videos are going to go when you hit stop recording. This is where the file is going to get saved. Very important to make sure you know where this file location is, because people have started recording videos and it goes somewhere by default. I believe it goes into, on Windows, it goes to the video file, I believe, by default. I don't even remember where that is. I have a custom path set up. So if you click on browse, you can set this to, if you wanted to set it to desktop, that's totally fine. I definitely recommend making a folder with either a common workspace, so you could make, say, a YouTube folder, and then in that folder you can, create different folders for each video. But as long as you have it set to go to a specific location, you're good. You can do this on the C drive. Just make sure you designate where it goes. Which, a quick note on the C drive, while I'm thinking of it, let me go to this PC. A quick note, because you're probably going to be doing a lot of work with video and let me actually cancel out of this for a second. You're probably doing a lot of video work in OBS and DaVinci Resolve. If your hard drive is maxed out, that's not good. Delete whatever stuff you don't need. Create some space. If you have some items on there that you still need but you don't regularly access, move them on the thumb drives, get an external hard drive, move that stuff off of there, because you are going to use this storage up very quickly. So definitely make sure you've got some space on your hard drive. I'm lucky enough that I've got I built my own machine, so I can, put the operating system on the C drive, I can have programs on an E drive, and I can put other storage stuff on other drives. So I can kind of manage things like that. If you only have the one disk, that's totally fine. Just be aware that you probably don't want this maxed out. You should have a good amount of working space, because your video files might get very large. Additionally, you may want to make sure that you're not running any other programs than you need to. I have seen students run, oh my god, the horns out here are ridiculous. I have seen students try to run multiple programs at the same time, and their computer RAM just completely cannot keep up. If you're experiencing systems that are slowing down, things are taking a while to load, it could be that you just have too much in RAM. So close out any extra programs that you don't need, work with one thing at a time, and then go back and forth. So just want to mention that really quickly. Okay, coming back over to settings. Going to output. So make sure that this location is specified, whether that's on the desktop, it's in your documents location, wherever that is, just make sure you know where to get to it. For the recording quality, for beginners, I do recommend keeping this on high quality so you get medium file sizes. So you'll end up with anywhere between, like 700 megabytes to a gig, maybe a little bit more. Indistinguishable quality is if you have a beefier machine, you can get larger file sizes, and this is nice, particularly if you're going to be doing a lot of editing and you're going to be uploading to YouTube. It is good to have this if you're doing very, very high quality, but generally this is totally fine to use. The main reason that we have these different settings is so that we don't have a loss of quality when we compress video. That is a whole, oh my lord. These cars are losing their minds. I'm going to pause this. Okay. Hopefully things have calmed down. So I was getting back to the video compression. That's a whole other topic. What I will say about it really quickly is that every time you save a video, it will try to optimize it as much as possible, which means ditching little bits of information. So the more you save it, the lower the file size is going to be, but the worse the quality is going to get. You know, it depends on how many times you do this and what formats and codecs and all that stuff, but that's a long topic that I honestly need to refresh myself on. But for most cases, leaving this on high quality is fine. If you have a beefier machine that can handle it, indistinguishable is good too. Just be aware, these are going to be very large files, so to do some small experiments for a start. We'll leave this on high quality. Recording format, MKV is great because basically if your system crashes for any reason, your video will still be saved. The only downside to this is that DaVinci Resolve, which is the editing software we use in our classes and our clubs, it will not accept MKV files to import. It just won't take them. You'll have to export them or convert them into MP3s. So you can record directly as an MP4, which is accepted, or I'm sorry, you'll have to transfer MKV to MP4 is what I meant to say. You can import an MP4 file directly into DaVinci Resolve, which is great. The downside is if your system crashes, you will lose the entire video file. This file format is not set up so that way you can still salvage the video. So it really depends on how you want to do it. Personally, I like to leave it on MKV, and then I like to transfer it a little bit later. That way I have a little bit of security so I don't lose all of my work. There are some extra steps. There's a little bit more work later, but I usually find that is an extra safety net. But if you're confident in your system and you want to just reduce a couple extra steps, you can just set this onto MP4, and then when you're done recording, you can pop it straight into your video editor. Just want to make you aware of that. I'm going to keep this on MKV because that's my personal setting. The encoder and the rest of the stuff down here, you can leave as is. Go ahead and hit apply for any changes that you make. I'm going to hit cancel because I want to keep my original settings. So there you go. That is pretty much everything you need to do to start recording in OBS. You've got your original scene here, which is just one. You've got all your different sources set up. You'll have to maybe play around with the audio settings a little bit, but from there, you're good to go. You can click on Start Recording, and you can do all the things, and then you can click this again to stop recording, and then check your folder for when you are done, which I actually have it in the lower left corner here. That's the YouTube folder I created earlier. Quick note, if you don't want to see this screen when you start recording, and you can always edit the footage a little bit later, you can also experiment with hotkeys. So there's you can set buttons specifically for start and stop. Recording. So that way you can open this up, just minimize it, and then you can click a couple keys on your keyboard, and it will automatically launch into that. Alternately, if you only have the one screen and you have small space, you can click start recording, and then once you're done, stop recording, you can go into your video editor and you can just chop out the beginning and end. You can still do it, you can do it either way, whatever works. And that, I think, is going to conclude our video on OBS. There are some more tricks and stuff that you can do with it to make it even fancier and all that stuff, but I think this is a pretty good starting point. So if you have any questions about this video, if there's anything you're confused about, watch it again, see if you can, maybe you might have to like rewatch the video a couple times, see if there's any other information on our club website. But if you have any serious trouble, go ahead and talk to your instructor. You can reach out to Evan or myself. Again, our contact information should be on the club website. But I hope you enjoyed, and maybe I will see you in a future video. Don't forget to lock these if you're comfortable. I think this will, you can still adjust the video input here. But that's just good practice. Okay, I'm done now. Okay, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in another video at some point. Bye.